Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into the evolution of how we interact with computers.
A field known as human-computer interaction.
HCI.
HCI, exactly.
Now, we've got a ton of stuff to get through. Research papers.
Oh, yeah. Some historical accounts.
We even found a couple of old design manifestos, which is fun.
Always a good time.
So are you ready to see how HCI transformed, from those old clunky command lines to like what we use on our phones every day?
Absolutely. I think it's a fascinating evolution. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think it makes sense to start with the first wave, set
I
the
think so.
stage.
Yeah, the first wave.
This was back in the 80s and into the early 90s.
Right, and this wave was all about applying like this rigor of cognitive science to the design process.
Yeah, it's so interesting how those early HCI researchers, they really viewed the human mind as like a information processor,
It's true, they were drawing heavily on cognitive psychology,
using all those theories about memory and attention,
problem solving too.
all to try and predict how people would use computers.
Yeah, and it makes sense if you think about it. I mean, if you understand how the mind works, you can design systems that are way more intuitive and easy to learn.
Exactly.
One of the big theories they used was GOMS, goals, operators, methods, and selection rules.
GOMS.
Yeah. By analyzing like all the steps a user took to complete a task.
They could try to optimize interfaces for speed and efficiency.
Exactly. So they were breaking down tasks into these tiny steps and then figuring out the most efficient way to do things.
Wow, so they were like hyper-focused on efficiency then.
Yeah, at first, but they eventually started exploring this concept of mental model.
Mental models.
Yeah, it's how people form kind of internal representations of how a system works.
Okay, so like if the design didn't align with those mental models.
People would get confused. Think back to the old days, command line interfaces, remember those?
Oh, yeah, not very intuitive.
No. But then came the graphical user interface.
Yeah.
The GUI. And that changed everything.
It was revolutionary. The desktop metaphor with files and folders. Even the trash can.
Yeah, it was designed to match how people already thought about a physical workspace.
It made computers accessible to, like, everyone.
Yeah, it really did.
But HCI didn't stop there. Researchers started realizing that just focusing on individual cognitive processes, it wasn't enough.
Right. It was too narrow because people don't use technology in a vacuum.
So true. This realization led to the second wave of HCI,
This was from the mid-90s to the mid-2000s.
the era of context matters.
Social and situated action.
What's fascinating here is this shift,
Yeah.
from the individual mind to the social and physical context.
Yeah, because we started to understand that people work in teams,
They collaborate,
get influenced by their environment.
all of that. And so theories like distributed cognition started popping up.
Right, and situated action. Distributed cognition recognized that thinking is often shared. We rely on external tools and artifacts all the time.
Like our phones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And situated action highlighted that our actions are shaped by the specific situation.
So it's not just about how my brain works.
No, it's about the environment, the people I'm with, the task at hand.
So HCI researchers started using like ethnographic methods, observing people in their actual work environments.
To really understand how people use technology.
This led to some big insights about collaborative work
The importance of being aware of what other people are doing.
and designing for flexible and dynamic interactions.
Okay, so that brings us to wave 3,
This is where things get really interesting.
mid-2000s to the present. This wave acknowledges that we interact with computers, not just with our minds.
But with our whole bodies,
Embodied interaction.
touch, gesture, movement, even integrating technology into our physical spaces.
Touch screens, motion sensors, VR. We're not just sitting at desktops anymore. We're moving, gesturing, immersing ourselves.
It's true. And this wave recognizes this deep connection, between our physical actions and our cognitive experiences. It's not just about inputting commands. It's about using our whole bodies to interact with information.
And their bodies are part of the interface now.
Whoa. And what's even cooler is the emphasis on human values in design.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
HCI researchers are increasingly focused on creating technology that supports well-being, creativity, sustainability, even social justice.
So it's not just about making tech efficient or user-friendly.
It's about making it meaningful
beneficial for individuals.
and for society as a whole.
Exactly.
Wow, okay.
This third wave, it's really pushing us to think beyond the desktop, beyond screens, even beyond like traditional input devices.
Hold on, I need a minute to process all this. We just went from focusing on the individual mind connection to understanding the social and contextual factors, and now our bodies are becoming part of the interface.
That's HCI in a nutshell.
It's a lot, but
Hmm.
it's amazing how much HCI has evolved.
It really has.
But where do we go from here? What does the future hold for HCI?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the evolution of human-computer interaction.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has. In part one, we navigated the first three waves of HCI. We started with that cognitive science focus in the early days.
Right.
Then we saw how social and contextual factors came into play.
Right.
And finally, how embodied interaction and human values have really taken center stage.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing progression when you think about it.
It is. So now I think it's time to maybe shift gears a bit
Okay.
and explore some of the key theories that have shaped how we think about HCI.
Okay. Sounds good.
One of the most influential early theories was GOMS.
Goals, operators, methods, and selection rules.
GOMS, you say? That sounds a bit technical.
It is a little jargony, I'll admit.
Can you break it down for us? Like, what does that even mean?
Sure. So GOMS was basically a way to analyze how people use computer systems.
Okay.
So imagine you're writing a document
Okay.
and you want to insert a picture.
Right.
Your goal is to insert the picture, right? The operators are the actions you take, like clicking the insert button,
Okay.
selecting the image file.
Okay.
The methods are the sequences of operators that you use to achieve your goal.
Okay.
And the selection rules determine which method you choose in a given situation.
So it's like a step-by-step recipe for completing a task on a computer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by breaking down tasks into these, like, tiny steps, researchers could pinpoint bottlenecks and areas for improvement in the interface.
Oh, interesting.
They could measure how long it took to complete each step and figure out ways to make things faster and more efficient.
So that's how they were able to make things so much faster over time.
Yeah, in part. But GOMS, it seems to really focus on individual actions.
Right.
What about the bigger picture? The social context of how people use computers.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not like we all just use computers in isolation.
Exactly. And that's where theories like distributed cognition come in.
Distributed cognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They recognize that thinking doesn't just happen inside our heads.
It doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
It's often distributed across people,
Across people.
tools, and the environment.
So it's like we're constantly offloading cognitive tasks onto the world around us.
Exactly. Think about, like, using a whiteboard to brainstorm with colleagues.
Okay. Yeah.
The whiteboard becomes kind of an extension of your collective memory,
Right.
helping you share ideas, see connections, make decisions together.
That's a good example.
Or even something as simple as, like, a to-do list to keep track of your tasks.
Oh, yeah.
It's like outsourcing your memory to a piece of paper.
Literally.
Right.
Uh,
So distributed cognition, it highlights how tools and artifacts can profoundly shape our thinking and actions.
so it's not just about the individual anymore.
No, it's about the entire system of people, tools, and the environment.
It makes me think of that phrase, what is it? Cognitive scaffolding?
Yes,
How we use external tools to, like, support our thinking processes.
exactly. And that's a key insight from that second wave of HCI. The shift from focusing solely on individual cognition to understanding the social and situated nature of interaction.
And that shift brought about new ways of setting HCI, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like ethnographic methods, where researchers would go out into the field and observe people using technology in their natural environments.
That's right. Ethnographic methods allowed researchers to gain a much, much richer understanding of how technology is actually used.
I bet.
In practice, they could see how people adapted tools to their own needs,
Right.
how they collaborated with others,
That makes sense.
how the physical environment influenced their interactions.
I'm curious, did this, like, focus on social and situated action lead to any, like, specific design principles?
Oh, for sure. One of the most important principles that emerged was the idea of supporting awareness in collaborative systems.
Awareness.
Yeah, like knowing what others are doing, what they're working on.
Okay, yeah.
When people are working together, whether it's on a shared document or in a virtual world,
Right.
it's super crucial that they have a sense of what others are doing.
Otherwise, you're just, like, working in the dark.
Totally. Otherwise, you're just fumbling around in the dark, not knowing how your actions might affect others.
And that lack of awareness can lead to, like, so many problems.
Oh, yeah, confusion, errors, even conflict.
Yeah, for sure.
So HCI researchers started exploring different ways to design systems that made it easier for people to stay aware of each other's activities.
Like those little indicators in Google Docs
Exactly.
that show who else is editing a document.
Precisely.
Or think about those collaborative project management tools
Yeah.
like Trello or Asana
Mm,
that allow team members to like visualize each other's progress and stay up to date on the status of different tasks.
all about transparency and shared understanding.
But as technology has advanced, we've also seen this shift from traditional desktop computing to more mobile and ubiquitous
Oh,
technologies.
yeah, for sure.
How did that impact HCI?
That's a great question, and it leads us right into the realm of embodied interaction and the third wave of HCI.
Right.
We're no longer tethered to our desktops.
Nope.
We're interacting with technology through our phones, tablets, even our wearables.
Smartwatches, fitness trackers, I mean, the list goes on.
And that shift, it has huge implications for how we think about interface design.
It's not just about clicking buttons or typing on keyboards anymore.
Right, it's about touch, gesture, movement, and the integration of technology into our physical spaces.
It's like our whole bodies are becoming part of the interface.
Precisely. And this understanding has led to the development of entirely new input methods and interaction paradigms, things like touch screens,
Oh, yeah.
gesture recognition,
For sure.
virtual reality.
I remember when the first iPhone came out
Oh, yeah.
with that multi-touch interface.
It's a game changer.
It felt so intuitive and natural.
It did, and that's a great example of how embodied interaction can create a more engaging and immersive user experience.
Right.
When you can physically manipulate objects on a screen, it feels like you're directly interacting with the digital world.
It's almost like blurring the lines between the physical and the digital.
And that blurring is only going to increase as technologies like augmented reality and wearable computing become more sophisticated.
Oh, absolutely.
We're moving towards a future where technology is seamlessly integrated into our everyday lives, and our interactions with it become more fluid and intuitive.
It's like we're entering a science fiction novel.
In a way, yes.
Truly.
But it's important to remember that HCI isn't just about, chasing after the latest technological fads.
Right.
It's about understanding the human experience and designing technology that enhances our lives, not distracts from them.
That's an important distinction.
It is. It's about using technology to empower people, to connect with each other, and to create meaningful experiences.
And that brings us to kind of the forefront of HCI research today, where we see a growing emphasis on human values in design.
Mm.
What do you mean by human values? What does that look like in HCI?
It's about designing technology that aligns with our ethical principles
Okay.
and our aspirations for a better world.
So it's not just about making things user-friendly anymore.
No, it's about designing technology that is sustainable,
Right.
that promotes social justice, that supports well-being.
I see. So like, for example,
For example, HCI researchers are exploring how to design technologies that promote accessibility for people with disabilities,
really?
or how to design social media platforms that foster healthy online interactions and combat misinformation.
Those are some really important areas.
They are.
So it sounds like HCI is becoming increasingly interdisciplinary.
It has to be.
Yeah.
As technology becomes more complex and more intertwined with our lives, we need to draw on insights from multiple disciplines to ensure that we're designing a future that we can all be proud of.
This deep dive into HCI is truly eye-opening,
Glad to hear you.
and we've only scratched the surface.
I know, right? There's so much more to explore.
In Part 3, we'll step back and reflect on the key takeaways from our exploration of the three waves of HCI and look ahead to what the future holds. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's great to be here.
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
exploring those three waves of HCI.
Yeah, starting from the early days of focusing on the individual mind.
Right, all that cognitive science stuff.
Then we shifted to understanding the social and contextual factors.
How it's not just about the individual user, but the whole environment.
And now we're at this point where embodied interaction and human values are front and center.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has.
As we wrap up our deep dive, what, really stands out to you?
For me, it's that shift we talked about.
From the individual to the bigger picture.
Exactly. HCI has moved beyond just making things user-friendly.
It's about designing technology that truly integrates into our lives.
Supports collaboration.
Improves communication.
And ultimately makes our lives better.
I think that's a key insight.
It is. Early HCI research was so focused on, optimizing individual performance.
Making things faster, more efficient.
Right. But As technology has become such a huge part of our social lives,
We can't ignore the impact it has on communities and society as a whole,
Exactly. And that's where this focus on human values comes in.
because technology isn't neutral.
It's not. It can be used for good or for bad.
It's up to all of us, the designers, the researchers, even the users.
To shape technology in a way that aligns with our values.
We touched on some of those ethical challenges around AI,
Yeah.
but there's also the impact of social media.
Mental health, misinformation.
The potential for technology to, make existing inequalities even worse.
These are huge issues.
They require a lot of careful thought.
And collaboration across different fields. We need insights from psychology, sociology, even ethics to ensure that technology is serving humanity.
Not the other way around.
All right.
It's a big task.
It is.
But I'm optimistic, I think, by taking this human-centered approach to design.
We can create a future where technology empowers people, connects us, helps us live more fulfilling lives.
I like that. I share your optimism.
Good.
As we finish up this deep dive into HCI, is there, one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. HCI isn't just about designing interfaces. It's about understanding people,
It's about empathy.
curiosity, a willingness to learn and adapt as technology changes.
Because the future of HCI isn't set in stone.
We're all shaping it together through our choices, our actions, our values.
So the next time you use any piece of technology,
Yeah.
take a moment to really think about the design decisions behind it.
Think about how it makes you feel, if it supports your goals, if it aligns with your values.
Because by engaging in those reflections, we can all help create a future where technology truly serves humanity.
And helps build a better world.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into HCI. We hope you enjoyed the journey.